welcome to everyone. Thank you to Shanti and the good folks at Root Institute for hosting this course. And thank you for all of you who are attending, either live or later following on the recordings. So very nice to see many familiar faces, also some new faces. So those of you whom I haven't met, welcome. My name is Tenzin Namjong. And those whom I have met, hi as well. So we have a lot to cover in these 4 weeks. So let's just jump into it right away. And we will start in the traditional way by reciting some preliminary prayers. So I will do a screen share now. And so these prayers are often recited at the beginning of teachings. They help to put our minds in the right sort of frame of mind. So we recite these praise to Shakyamuni Buddha, and there's also some praises and remembrancing of the 3 jewels of refuge, the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. So I think many of you are familiar with these prayers. So we'll get into more of the motivation for participating in these teachings afterwards. But just for now, trying to first recall the Buddha and recalling the qualities that he attained, and then the Dharma, which is the teachings that he gave that enable now us to follow in his footsteps, as it were, and attain those very same qualities within ourselves. And so later, we will, by following in the Buddha's footsteps, be able to become fully enlightened Buddhas ourselves. And then, just like the Buddha did, we'll be able then to impart those same methods, those same teachings to others. And similarly, to offer the same amount of benefit as the Buddha, the Shakyamuni Buddha, did in our time, in our age. We'll be able to do that in other world systems for other sentient beings with whom we have a specific karmic connection. So, remembering those qualities, then we do these praise. So it's very good to recite these out loud, and later we'll get into this. But you know, you can put your hands in this prostration mudra. So as Lama Zopa Rinpoche often says, you know, so not like the namaste like this, but we put our thumbs in the middle, you know. We'll get into more of the mechanics of prostrating later. But just now, then we have the sort of mentally recalling the Buddha's qualities and wishing to generate them within our own minds, right? That's a kind of mental prostration. The physical prostration is putting our hands in this mudra, a sort of physical way of showing respect. And then the verbal prostration is to recite these praises. So I invite you all to recite along with me. But yeah, you have your microphones on mute, that's okay, but you can recite. Okay, so the Guru, teacher, Bhagavan, Tathagata, Arhat, perfectly completed Buddha, perfect in knowledge and in good conduct, Sugata, knower of the world, supreme guide of beings to be subdued, teacher of gods and humans, to you, Buddha, Bhagavan, glorious conqueror, Shakyamuni, I prostrate, make offerings, and go for refuge. The Guru, teacher, Bhagavan, Tathagata, Arhat, perfectly completed Buddha, perfect in knowledge and in good conduct, Sugata, knower of the world, supreme guide of beings to be subdued, teacher of gods and humans, to you, Buddha, Bhagavan, glorious conqueror, Shakyamuni, I prostrate, make offerings, and go for refuge. Guru, teacher, Bhagavan, Tathagata, Arhat, perfectly completed Buddha, perfect in knowledge and in good conduct, Sugata, knower of the world, supreme guide of beings to be subdued, teacher of gods and humans, to you, Buddha, Bhagavan, glorious conqueror, Shakyamuni, I prostrate, make offerings, and go for refuge. When, supreme among humans, you were born on this earth, you paced out in strides, then said, I am supreme in this world. To you who were wise then, I prostrate. With pure bodies, form supremely pure, wisdom ocean like a golden mountain, fame that blazes in the three worlds, winner of the best, savior, to you I prostrate. With supreme signs, face like a spotless moon, color like gold, to you I prostrate. Dust free like you, the three worlds are not. Incomparably wise one, to you I prostrate. The Savior having great compassion, the teacher having all understanding, the field of merit with qualities like a vast ocean, to you, the one gone to thusness I prostrate. The purity that frees one from attachment, the virtue that frees one from lower realms, the one path, the sublime pure reality, to the Dharma that pacifies I prostrate. Those who are liberated and who also show the path to liberation, the holy field, qualified with realizations, who are devoted to the moral precepts, to you, the sublime community intending virtue, I prostrate. Do not commit any unwholesome actions. Engage in perfect wholesome actions. Subdue one's own mind. This is the teaching of the Buddha. A star, a defective view, a butter lamp flame, an illusion, a dewdrop, a water bubble, a dream, lightning, a cloud. See all causative phenomena like this. By these merits, transmigratory beings attain the state of all seeing, subdue the enemy of the faults, and be freed from the ocean of samsara, disturbed by the waves of aging, sickness, and death. Okay, and then we'll also do just the, the refuge in bodhicitta. So again, we will get into the meaning of this a little bit more in the teaching, but just now, to the best of your ability, try to understand the words here. So, I take refuge until I'm enlightened in the Buddha, Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly, by my merits of generosity and so forth. May I become a Buddha to benefit transmigratory beings. I take refuge until I'm enlightened in the Buddha, Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly, by my merits of generosity and so forth. May I become a Buddha to benefit transmigratory beings. I take refuge until I'm enlightened in the Buddha, Dharma, and Supreme Assembly, by my merits of generosity and so forth. May I become a Buddha to benefit transmigratory beings. Okay. So now, we decided to do this course because, well, actually, let me go back and do this share screen. So now, oftentimes at the beginning of new courses, then I like to give a quick sort of summary of the entire Buddha Dharma. And often I use this very stanza here that is actually from the Dhammapada. And if you've been following Lama Zopa Rinpoche's teachings or His Holiness the Dalai Lama's teachings, this stanza perhaps might be the most often quoted, the most often used, as it, I think, perfectly in one stanza encapsulates the entire Buddha Dharma. So here we have, do not commit any unwholesome actions, engage in perfect wholesome actions, subdue one's own mind. This is the teaching of the Buddha. Okay. So, yeah, that's it. If one were to sort of summarize the entire Buddha Dharma, then that one stanza, does it quite perfectly. So there's another stanza actually written by Nagarjuna at the end of the Mula Majjhimika, or his commentary on the fundamental wisdom, where he says, he actually pays homage to the Buddha, saying, enthused by great compassion, you taught the holy Dharma to overcome all wrong views. To you, the Gautam Buddha, I prostrate. So here, there's also another very good stanza that summarizes the Buddha Dharma. So first thing in the first line, talking about the Buddha's motivation. So enthused by great compassion. So compassion, or karuna, then many of you know, is the wish that others be free from suffering. So every single one of the Buddha's actions and activities is done with this view in mind to free the sentient beings, or help to free them from their suffering. But here, then, sorry, I'm going to be quoting a lot at the beginning here. But as it says in another sutra, that the Buddhas do not wash away the sins with water, nor do they remove others' suffering with their hands, nor do they transfer their realizations to another mind stream. But the Buddhas liberate sentient beings by teaching the reality. Okay. So although the Buddhas have compassion and wish that all sentient beings be free from suffering, then it's not that they can, wave a magic wand or, perform some kind of ritual, and then, magically all the sentient beings would be free from suffering. If that were possible, then we all would have been liberated from suffering a very long time ago, and we wouldn't find ourselves in the predicament that we still find ourselves in. So one of the central concepts within Buddhism is this thought or this kind of tenet of the law of cause and effect, that from our negative actions come suffering, and from our positive actions come happiness and success. So although the Buddha would want us to be free of all suffering, then it's actually up to us to follow the essential practice of abandoning the cause of suffering ourselves. And we first do this by, abandoning negative actions and trying to accumulate virtuous actions as much as we can. So this very practice is the kind of root, the fundamental practice of all the Buddhist practitioners. And therefore, here now in this course where we're going through karma, this is the law of cause and effect. And so since we want to experience happiness and we want to avoid suffering, then we have to have a very sound knowledge in what it means for actions to be virtuous or non-virtuous. And so in this course, we're going to be going through the law of karma and going through that in quite some detail based on the outlines and the text, the great stages, the great treatise on the stages of the path to enlightenment, or the Lamrim Chenmo. So many of you don't have your cameras on, but those of you who do, so how many are familiar with that text, the Lamrim Chenmo, or great stages of the path to enlightenment? Okay, 50-50. Okay, so the rest of you, then is there anyone this is maybe the first course they're ever taking? Okay. Siddharth. Okay, but you have the same name as the Buddha, so that already puts you maybe at a little bit of an advantage, I hope. Okay, no problem. Okay, well, we will then, I'm going to then, just to make sure that everyone's on the same page, because there might be some people who have their cameras off that are also in a bit of a more beginner's kind of mind. So that's okay. So yeah, maybe I'll just take one step back and do a little bit more of a broad introduction, so we're all on the same page. Okay, so now we were saying that the Buddha doesn't wash away sins with water, nor does he remove suffering with his hands, like removing a thorn, nor does he transfer his realizations to another mind stream, but he liberates sentient beings through teaching the reality. So as many of you know, then the Buddha appeared here in this world a little bit over 2,500 years ago, and he took the aspect of becoming enlightened in Bodh Gaya when he was 35. And then for the rest of his life, he took the appearance of passing away into parinirvana when he was 80. So the last part of his life, then he traveled around to various places in North India and taught various teachings. And so many of those teachings, if you look at the sutras, generally they'll start with someone asking the Buddha a question, and then the Buddha would respond, and that sort of question and answer would then become the body of the sutra. So all the sutras are the Buddha's own words, and then after the Buddha passed away, there was then many great Indian masters who then continued to practice the Buddha's teachings as the Buddha directly taught, and these great Indian masters also wrote commentaries on the Buddha's teachings. So these commentaries then formed what we call the Tengyur, right? And then within this commentarial tradition, then different tenet systems arose, different ways to interpret what the Buddha taught arose, and then the different masters would then try to systemize the teachings and collate, interpret, categorize them in various ways. So then, as many of you know, the Buddhism started to spread outside of India, first to Sri Lanka, then later to various parts in Southeast Asia, later to China, and then later to Tibet. And as the teachings traveled to Tibet, this happened in two main waves. First was in about the, I think, 7th century. This was the sort of first wave of the transmission. And then the Buddha's teachings, unfortunately, declined in Tibet. There was a king who was a major patron of the Dharma, and his brother, actually named Langdharma, was jealous of him and killed him so that he himself could become king. And then, because the former king was a major patron of the Dharma, then he had sponsored many monasteries and so forth. Then the new king, who had just murdered his brother, also sought retribution on the rest of the Buddhist Sangha, and therefore killed virtually all of the monks in central Tibet. And so there were two monks that then fled to eastern Tibet. And so at that point, the entire central Tibet, the Buddhism had virtually disappeared. So then Langdharma was later killed himself. And after that happened, they tried to sort of reintroduce the Buddha Dharma within Tibet. And at that time, since the kind of commentarial traditions, the Sangha, the teachers, had been virtually wiped out, they then sought, again, the help of the great Indian masters to reinvigorate and revitalize the teachings of the Buddha in Tibet. And so they invited the great Indian master, Atisha, who was actually from Bengal. And, later he was from Bengal. He studied in, present-day Bihar, studied at Nalanda Monastery. Later also held a position at the other great monastic university of Vikramalashila. And then some Tibetans came to India and invited him back to Tibet so he could, reinvigorate the Dharma. But in particular, there were many questions that came up as to how to interpret the various teachings of the Buddha. Because, as we mentioned, then, all these various schools of thought had arisen. Okay, and then all these different interpretations also took place, and these very learned scholars were engaging in some very complex philosophical treatises that were debating these very subtle philosophical points, and without proper education, then these sort of arguments and these texts, these treatises, can become, very difficult to follow and understand. So the great Master Atisha was invited to Tibet. He came, and then the Tibetans at that time sort of asked him to clarify various doubts they had about how to practice the various Buddhist teachings, how they could then, take all the diverse teachings that are found in the sutras and, make sense of them in a way that are, is free of the apparent contradictions that can take place when one delves into these philosophical sort of arguments and differences in interpretation. And so in so doing, the great Master Atisha, he wrote a text, a very short text, called The Lamp for the Path to Enlightenment. And in that text, what he did was arrange all the various Buddhist teachings in an order of their practice. Okay, so of all the teachings, right? There are certain teachings that are more sort of foundational, and then what we call the Lamrim Chenmo, the graduated stages of the path to enlightenment, right? So there's a kind of stepwise progression of practices that one engages in from the state of a beginner all the way to the state of a Buddha. So whereas the sutras that the Buddha taught, since he just was answering the question of whatever being was there asking him, right? And there was no sort of overarching structure, apparent structure in these sutras. But rather it fell to the later commentators to arrange the teachings in the way of practice. And so this genre of teachings called the Lamrim then took root in Tibet, and now there are more than 20 such treatises in this genre of Lamrim. And so basically what the Lamrim does, it arranges the teachings in three main categories, which then kind of correspond to three varying motivations or goals, we can say, for our Dharma practice. Okay? All right. So what are these three goals? Then the first goal is, well, to achieve a good rebirth in our next life. Okay? Then the second goal would be not just to want a good rebirth in the next life, but as we might have heard, right? There's as we said in the last sort of stanza, right? the ocean of samsara, perturbed by the sufferings of aging, sickness, and death, right? So this concept of samsara, this process of uncontrolled rebirth, that is sort of projected, propelled by our karma and our delusions, our afflictive emotions, our klesha. Okay, so you understand? So the sort of what they call the initial practitioner, or a practitioner of the initial capability, their main goal is to achieve a good rebirth in their next life. But then, more than that, the practitioner of middle capability then not only wants to get a good rebirth in the next life, but also then wants to be free of all the sufferings of samsara. Because you see, even if we get a good rebirth in our next life, well, what about the life after that? As long as we have not abandoned the causes of samsara, karma and afflictions, then we're bound to continue to take this kind of uncontrolled rebirth. And just getting a good rebirth in our next life is then no guarantee that we're going to get another good rebirth after that. And even in a good rebirth like we have now, well, even as a human, how much suffering are we experiencing every day? So this middle capability practitioner, is not satisfied with the goals of the small capable practitioner, and so aspires to something larger, something greater. And then we have the great capable practitioner, right? The practitioner of great capability. There's different translations for that. And for these practitioners, well, they don't even just merely want liberation from samsara, right? They actually, here, imbued with great compassion, just like the Buddha, right? They don't just want to free themselves from suffering of samsara, but rather seeing that all sentient beings are just like them, equal in wanting happiness and equal in wanting to be free from suffering. They then reflect on this sort of, equality between, themselves and all living beings. And they think, well, if I were just to work for my own benefit, that would be quite selfish. That would not be the goal I want to achieve. And rather, since I have, this body, this mind, I'm going to do something that will then be of benefit to all sentient beings. Okay. And then they consider, well, in my current state, since I am not free of suffering yet, well, I'm actually of limited capability in terms of how much I can benefit others. And so they seek to attain the state of their highest potential, which is that of full enlightenment. And so then they will feel, and they will be perfectly suited with all the skills, the capabilities, and so forth, to guide sentient beings in the most effective way, to be free of the oceans of samsaric suffering, and also lead them to the state of enlightenment as well. Okay? We got that? So those are the three goals, okay? Those are the three, they call them scopes, the three types of person. There's different ways to translate, okay? So now here, where are we? So this section on karma is actually in the practitioner of lower capability, okay? So many of you, okay, I'm sorry if you're a alignment expert, but just because, there's people of different background levels, then just wanted to review a little bit, right? So remember, the first kind of prelude to the whole Lamrim is this teaching on the precious human rebirth. And so this teaching is just to get us to reflect on the very precious opportunity that we're afforded by having this human life with a sound body and mind, reasonable enough intelligence. And not only that, but we've also met with the Buddhist teachings. We've met with these methods that enable us to attain these higher states of, a good rebirth in our next life, liberation from all of samsara, and even fully and complete enlightenment. So this type of situation is so precious in terms of what we can do with it. And it's also so rare because, to get this kind of opportunity, so many different factors have to come about. We need to get a good rebirth. We need to be born in a time when the Buddha has appeared and taught and the teachings still exist. We need to have, access to the teachings. We need to have, a sound body and mind where we can, practice and understand the teachings. So when we look across the world today, it's actually, very few in terms of absolute numbers that have the kind of opportunity that we have. And then when we consider the time element of it, where, the Buddha, he appeared 2,500 years ago. Before that, the Buddhist teachings did not exist in this world. So, had we been born in a time when the Buddhist teachings didn't exist, even if we had, the sharpest intelligence, even if we had, a human body and the best sort of education at the time, we wouldn't have access or the ability to attain the state of liberation and enlightenment. So this kind of prelude, these teachings on the precious human rebirth, then should foster within us this thought that, what we have, given that we have this precious human rebirth, is so precious that, I'm not going to waste this opportunity. And so in this vein, I wanted just to share some stanzas. So many of you have heard of the great Indian master Shantideva. So he writes in his famous text, the Bodhisattva Charyavatara, "There is nothing more deluded and nothing more confused than for me to have found such leisure and yet not to cultivate virtue. After I've recognized this, if I remain idle through confusion, great sorrow will befall me at the time of my death, when my body roasts for a long time in the intolerable fires of hell. Blazing flames of unbearable regret will certainly ravage my mind. This is a rare and helpful situation. Somehow I have found it by chance. If, despite my intelligence, I am drawn again to hell, then, like one bewildered by a magical spell, I will simply have lost my wits. What is it within me that causes this confusion? I do not know even this." So in a similar vein, and just one stanza this time, the great Indian master Chantakirti, he says, "Now that I have independence and favorable conditions, if I do not take full advantage of this time, I will plunge into the abyss and fall under the control of others. Who will then lift me out?" You understand? So now is the time that we have all the outer conditions and the inner conditions afforded to us by this precious human rebirth, where we need to make the best use of it. And the best use of it, then, of course, we need to, do our best to attain any of the three of these goals of the three sort of stages of practice, either the initial, the medium, or the great practitioner. But what is common to all those, here another quotation by Chandrakirti, in common to all those is this, this thought of the need to practice pure morality. So again, in Chandrakirti's Majjhimika Avatara, he says, for ordinary beings, those born from the Buddha's speech, those whose nature are certain to be self-enlightened or conquerors' children, there are no causes of certain goodness or high status apart from ethical discipline. Okay, have you heard that stanza before? So ordinary beings means, well, like me, maybe some of you. Ordinary being is someone who has not realized emptiness directly. Okay, are there other ordinary beings on this Zoom call? I'm not sure. Then those born from the Buddha's speech. So some of you might know the Sanskrit term Shravaka, right? So the great disciples of the Buddha, like Shariputra, Ananda, Moggallon, and so forth, they're called hearers, right? You might also know this term, Nyente in Tibetan. And so these are the practitioners, right? They're called born from the Buddha's speech because they, hear the Buddhist teachings, they put them into practice, and then, they attain the state of liberation based on that. So those whose natures are certain as self-enlightened, these are the Pratyeka Buddhas. Have you heard of these, the Pratyeka Buddhas? Pratyeka Buddhas are the ones who, well, they're not actually Buddhas, so it's a bit confusing. But in their last life, they attain the state of liberation, unlike the hearers who do it on the basis of hearing the Buddha teach. In their last life, they do it in a place and a time when the Buddhist teachings don't exist. And just from having, practiced for a long period of time, so normally it says they practice for 100 eons to attain this state. Through practicing for 100 eons, they have so many imprints in their mental continuum that in their last life, they sort of, realize liberation without having to rely on a teacher. And then the conqueror's children, these are the bodhisattvas, okay? So we mentioned the great capable being, the person of great capacity. So these are the ones who wish to achieve enlightenment to be of utmost benefit for sentient beings, okay? So those are the conqueror's children. They are the ones who are not yet enlightened, but have attained this aspiration to achieve enlightenment for the benefit of all sentient beings, okay? So for all those four categories, okay, there are no causes of certain goodness. So certain goodness, right? Nyelek in Tibetan, okay, Tenzin Namjong. Have you learned that yet? Nyelek, okay. Certain goodness means liberation or enlightenment, okay? And then high status. High status is a good rebirth. So there are no causes of certain goodness or high status apart from ethical discipline, okay? Why is that? So as many of you, as we mentioned here, in order to make utmost progress along the path to enlightenment, then, we need a human rebirth, a precious human rebirth like this. In other states of existence, like, an animal or hell being, hungry ghost, all these different types of beings in the Buddhist pantheon, they don't have the same kind of opportunity that we have. So since, unfortunately, for us to achieve enlightenment, many of us are going to require more than just this life. Of course, it's possible to achieve enlightenment even in one life, but it's going to require, single-pointed determination, practice, and effort, the likes of which, if we're honest with ourselves, many of us are not even close to doing. So because of that, we're going to need a string of good human rebirths. And in order to do that, we're going to need the cause of achieving a good human rebirth, which is ethical discipline. But then, not only that, right? Then once we have this good foundation of a human rebirth, right? So we need to continue to accumulate virtue. Actually, the cause of enlightenment, they say, are mainly two. There is the accumulation of merit and the accumulation of transcendental wisdom, or the sunam giso and yeshi giso. Okay, so then the accumulation of merit basically is all the various good karma that we accumulate, aside from the karma that we do when we meditate on emptiness, roughly speaking, okay? So because of that, because of all of the, happiness and success come from, virtue, right? And the non-virtue are the causes for the lower rebirths that would then present a serious obstacle for our progress along the path. And then not only that, but actually to attain these higher realizations, these negative karmic imprints actually create obstacles for even those attainments. Not just obstacles for attaining a good rebirth, but even to attain these realizations that maybe we've heard of and we so desperately want, like the attainment of bodhicitta, the realization of emptiness, the various realizations on the path. The more kind of karmic imprints we have in our mental continuum, and then the harder it is for those realizations to arise. So therefore, there is this tradition in the Tibetan sort of lineage to do the Mundro, or preliminary practices. Later on in this course, we're going to be talking about one such Mundro practice, the prostrations, where one does 100,000 prostrations, 100,000 mandala offerings, and so forth, in order to purify previously accumulated negativities and to accumulate the vast stores of merit. There is an analogy of our minds being like fields, right? Our minds being like a field. So just like a field, if we want to have a fruitful harvest, then we first have to, till the field, fertilize the field, make sure that it is, suitable. And then we plant. But, if we try to plant seeds before having, prepared the field, and, it's full of rocks and other weeds, then even when we plant the good seeds, those seeds won't be able to flourish in the way that they will if we first prepare the field in a proper way. So, are you with me? So that is why, this teaching on karma is very, 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 very crucially important. Just some more advertising. One more quotation by Shantideva, where he says, thanks. Okay. So Shantideva also says in the Bodhisattva Charyavatara, from non-virtue comes suffering. How can I be truly free of this? It is fitting that at all times, day and night, I think only of this. He also says, for the sage, that means the Buddha, has said that conviction is the root of all virtues, and to constantly meditate on fruitional effects that means karma, is the root of this conviction. Okay. So by understanding the intricacies of karma, and not only understanding, but then putting into practice what we've learned, and by very precisely abandoning non-virtue and putting in, cultivating virtue as much as we can, right? Then all the other sort of realizations will come from that. And that's why in that stanza that we started with from the Dhammapada, do not commit a single non-virtuous action, accumulate a host of perfect, pure actions, right? That is the significance of that. Okay? Yes? Okay, Siddharth, have I lost you? Or any other the newcomers? That was my attempt at a sort of introduction that is suitable for newcomers. But already, I'm quoting Chandrakirti and Shantideva so much, so I'm not sure if I kept on, But are we all okay at this point? Any questions? Wow, you guys, impressive. Okay, so let's go into the actual text. All right, so I'm going to do another screen share. Can you see that? So here are the very outlines from the Lamrim Chenmo, or the great stages of the path to enlightenment that I mentioned. Okay, and so basically I mentioned that these teachings on karma, they are in the so-called small scope, or the stages of the path shared with a being of initial capability. Okay, I think someone has their mic unmuted. Okay, everyone's muted except me. All right, great. So here, this is what I was saying, right? At the very beginning, we try to develop a state of mind that strives diligently for the sake of future lives, right? This is the main sort of practice of the being of initial capability, okay? And of course, there's more sub-headings under there. But then the next heading, where this is coming from, is then, okay, we first have to sort of think, oh, my future lives, what happens to me in my future life is more important than what happens to me in this life. And we do that basically by reflecting on, impermanence and death. We reflect on the fact that after this life, we're going to take rebirth. And, there's only two ways we can go. We can either get a good rebirth or a bad rebirth. And then, since we want a good rebirth and don't want a bad rebirth, then we inquire into what are the respective causes with those two. And then we need to abandon the causes for low rebirth and cultivate the causes for a good rebirth. So that is then relying on the means for achieving happiness in the next life. So then we have the section on training and going for refuge, the excellent door of entering the teachings, okay? And that also is beyond the scope of this course. Then, after the section on refuge, we have the section on karma. So that is starting with this heading, developing the faith of conviction that is the root of all temporary happiness and certain goodness. Okay? So this is what I was, quoting Shantideva, that, this faith and conviction in karma is the root of all temporary happiness. Temporary happiness is what? Getting the rebirth. Certain goodness is what? Certain goodness is the state of liberation or enlightenment. Okay. All right. So now, in the actual body of the Lamrim on karma, there is first reflecting on karma and its effects in general. So one, the actual way to reflect in general. And here we have the four main outlines that many of you are familiar with, but these are four general characteristics of karma. The certainty of karma, magnification of karma, not experiencing the effects of action that you did not do, and the actions you have done do not perish. Okay? All right. We'll share these outlines with you at some point. So now, if, by the way, any of you have the Lamrim Chenmo, then you can take it out. I'll be now giving a commentary based on the Lamrim Chenmo on those outlines. Okay. Okay. So now we had these four outlines, right? So first is the certainty of karma. So what does it mean that karma is certain? So here, this means there's a quotation by Nagarjuna in the Precious Garland or Ratnavali. From non-virtues come all suffering, and likewise all miserable realms. From virtue come all happy realms and joys in all rebirths. Okay, so the certainty of karma means that the effects of non-virtue is suffering. Suffering either as taking rebirth in a lower realm, or even in a happy rebirth, generally happy rebirth like a human, then the illnesses, the various sufferings that we can experience even as a human are the effects of the ripening of previously accumulated negative karma. Okay. Similarly, on the other hand, then from virtue comes the happy realms, means rebirth as a human or deva, and then even within these rebirths, whether they be happier or the miserable rebirths, right? So even a pet getting very good food, getting a warm bed, and so forth. The sort of happiness and good fortune that even these animals can receive is due to previously accumulated virtue. Okay. Okay, so that's what it means for karma to be certain. Now here is just one doubt that comes up. So here I'm going to read something from the Lamrim Chenmo. There it says, all sufferings in the sense of painful feelings, including even the slightest suffering occurring in an arhat's mind stream, arise from previously accumulated non-virtuous karma. It is impossible for suffering to arise from virtuous karma. Okay, so do you know what an arhat means? Arhat is someone who has achieved nirvana or liberation. They're called an arhat. Sometimes you see that translated literally as foe destroyer. Here, the foe is the foe of the afflictions. Okay, so here it's saying that there is suffering occurring in an arhat's mind stream. Okay, so what do we think about this? Shanti, can I put you on the spot? It's either you or Tenzin Namjong. Okay, so is there suffering in an arhat's mind stream?
No, Ganga.
No. It says all sufferings in the sense of painful feelings, including even the slightest suffering occurring in an arhat's mind stream.
It must be physical pain, it can't be mental pain.
Okay, so, well, there is physical pain then. There is suffering.
This
Yes.
would be in an arhat with remainder when they have the contaminated aggregates. So even though they may feel physical pain, but they do not feel mental pain.
Well, okay. But isn't a physical pain a mind? You know, when I hit myself, you know, I'm experiencing that experience of suffering is actually a mind, right?
Yeah, it's a
Because it's
sense, a
experience,
tactile. Yeah.
right? So does that occur in Arhat's continuum?
I don't know, Venerable.
Okay. Anyway, the doubt. Some of you who are beginners, sorry, I don't want to confuse you more, but you know, for more than 4 months here in Sept in South India, we've been on lockdown, so we haven't had any debate. We're going to start up soon, but you know, usually we debate for hours every day, and you know, I'm like 4 months out of practice. So when I have these little opportunities to engage in a bit of debate, I cherish them very much. So here, the point is the doubt, which we should all think about. These arhats have attained nirvana. Okay, that means they've you know, nirvana literally is the state beyond suffering. So if we say that these arhats have achieved nirvana, well, they should be free of all suffering, right? But yet, we see not only this quotation here, that, you know, including even the sight of suffering occurring in an arhat's mind, but we see many stories in the sutras about, for example, the great Moggallana, who, you know, on the side of the Buddhas, when you normally see the Buddhas with two, actually in Root Institute, they have statues of Shariputra and Moggallana. They're holding the Arhat staff. Yeah. I wonder how many of you have been to Root Institute. I hope all of you are able to go someday very soon. And when you go there, you'll be able to see inside. They have the statue of Buddha, and then on the sides is Moggallana and Shariputra. So Moggallana, actually, you know, he was beaten to death. This was a very sort of famous story where Moggallana was the foremost among the Buddhist disciples in terms of kind of supernatural powers. He was able to fly in the air. There's many stories of him, you know, flying to the various, you know, hell realms and other realms. There was one time where I think he tried to, you know, the Buddha's Ujjanisha, you know, the crown pinnacle, the Suktor. Moggallana, you know, you could see the Buddha, and you know, in normal depictions, you know, there's, you know, a slight top knot. But one time, Moggallana tried to take the measure of the top knot, and so he flied off. You know, we think it's just a few inches, but Moggallana actually, you know, continued to fly up into space, and he couldn't, you know, reach the end of it. Anyway, there's many stories like this. But what happened was, well, one time, you see, he had actually in one of his previous lives criticized his mother, said something quite nasty, something like, I think he just said it. He didn't even do it. But his mother sort of did something that annoyed him. And he said, "Oh, I wish I could kick your head in." And so what happened then, even after he attained the state of arhatship or nirvana, then he had traveled to the hell realms one day. And there was another famous Buddhist teacher, non-Buddhist teacher, who had many disciples. And this non-Buddhist teacher passed away. And he was born in the hells, actually. But his students had such, you know, faith and devotion in their teacher that they continued to offer pujas to him. But when they offered these pujas to him, in the hells where he was, he would experience more suffering. I think it was like, yeah, maybe they offered, flowers to him, and he would experience falling embers, ashes, very hot embers fall on him when his students offered him flowers. So Moggallana went to the hells and met this teacher, and the teacher told him, "Oh, please tell my students, not to do this anymore, and instead, follow the Buddha. Don't follow me anymore. I know now the path I was teaching was mistaken." So Moggallana did this, and he went to the teacher's students and told them this. But if you can imagine, right, these students didn't take it very well. They thought that he was, insulting their teacher and just trying to kind of trick them, by saying that the path they were following, the path that they had been taught, was a false one. And now he was just trying to get these students to follow his own teacher, the Buddha. And so they got very upset. And then, they formed a mob. They called other of his students. They then tracked Moggallana down and beat him to death. And in that time, although the Moggallana could fly into space, well, when the mob was coming for him, all of his magical powers then didn't work anymore. And he then, after he was beaten up and was about to die, he got this insight into the subtle workings of karma. And he knew that, it's because this very powerful karma of having, said that very mean thing to his mother in a previous life. Because of that, he then had to experience this suffering. So, anyway, something to think about. We also Nagarjuna. Okay. Zoom was also subtly telling me, enough stories. No, I'm joking. Anyway, the great Indian master Nagarjuna, it is said that he was able to be beheaded using a blade of grass. His head couldn't be severed even with a very sharp sword, but he was able to be beheaded with a piece of grass, because in one of his previous lives, while he was cutting grass, he had killed some animals, some insects. Anyway, okay. So point 2 in the 4 ways to reflect on karma in general, we have the magnification of karma. And so what this means is, basically, the strength of our karmic deeds increases every day. In the other great famous treatise on the stage of the path to enlightenment, The Liberation in the Palm of Your Hand, written by Pabonga Rinpoche, it says that the karmic potency of our actions doubles every day. Here in Lamrim Chenmo, it doesn't say that, but it does talk about different stories where, for example, there was a monk who mentioned to another monk that he was jumping around like a monkey. So, just said, hey, you're jumping around like a monkey. And just from saying that, he was then himself born as a monkey for 500 rebirths. So anyway, the point is, from even what we might think as small, insignificant actions, then great suffering results can ensue. So then there's a very nice and famous sort of analogy here, where they say that do not think that the commission of even a tiny sin will not pursue you, just as a large vessel is filled by drops of water, so too a fool is filled up with sins accumulated a little at a time. And then the converse, do not think that the cultivation of even a tiny virtue will not pursue you, just as a large pot is filled by falling drops of water, so too are the steadfast filled up by virtues accumulated a little at a time. Okay. So the third outline then is not experiencing the effects that you did not do. Right? So what that means is, well, everything that we experience then is the ripening of karmic deeds that we ourselves have done. Yeah. Now, here in Lamrim Chenmo, there's another debate. But yeah, maybe not to get into the whole thing, but there is this line, those of you who are studying Lamrim Chenmo. It just says, those who enjoy the fruits of the innumerable collections amassed by the teacher, that means the Buddha, need not have accumulated all of the causes of these effects, but they do need to accumulate a portion. Okay? You know what that means? So here, this is actually talking about rebirth in a Buddha Pure Land. Okay? So normally, there are these pure realms, pure lands, the Amitabha Buddha Pure Land, for example, okay? And all the Buddhas actually, okay, in order to become a Buddha, one needs to also establish one's Pure Land, okay? Now, in most Pure Lands, to be reborn there, one needs to be at least an Arya Bodhisattva. So a Bodhisattva means someone who's, generated the mind of uncontrolled bodhicitta, this wish to achieve enlightenment for the benefit of all sentient beings. And then an Arya Bodhisattva is one who not only has this mind of bodhicitta, but has the direct realization of emptiness. Okay, so they then have the sort of stock of merit, the accumulation to be reborn in the Pure Lands. But there are certain exceptions, like Amitabha Buddha Pure Land, or Sukhavati, Devachan, where even ordinary beings like ourselves can be reborn there. And so here, when it says, those who enjoy the fruits of the innumerable collections amassed by the teacher, okay, so the Pure Land is the effect of these innumerable collections amassed by the Buddhas, okay? So, of course, ordinary beings don't have that, but they will need to have accumulated a portion, okay? So the portion here means, for example, in relation to being reborn in the Amitabha Buddha Pure Land, one needs to, make aspirational prayers to be reborn there. One needs to generate bodhicitta. One needs to generate faith in Amitabha and the qualities of his Pure Land, and therefore, by making, some virtue, either by, reciting Amitabha Buddha, mantra or praises to Amitabha Buddha, and then having strong faith and then making aspirational prayers to be reborn there, then one is able to be reborn there even as an ordinary being. So anyway, that's what it means here. Okay. Last point, the actions you have done do not perish. So this just means that, even here it says in the Vinaya Sutra, that even in 100 eons, karma does not perish. When the circumstances and the time arrives, beings surely feel its effects. Okay. So that means basically, even if we do things now, the karmic fruition might not be experienced for a very long time, but eventually, unless that karma is purified, then, sooner or later, we will experience its effects. And that, by the way, is how Nagarjuna then was able to be beheaded by a blade of grass. Okay, so those are the four main outlines of the general characteristics of karma. And it might be a logical time to now open it up for questions.
You can just unmute and ask. Or raise your hand virtually using, I think it's reactions. Yes, reactions.
Wow, are you shy, or are you all such scholars that
So,
feel anything
Venerable,
to clarify? Yeah.
yeah, I think maybe you were breaking up or you didn't answer, you didn't clarify. But do the arhats then experience any kind of physical suffering or mental suffering, as you said, tactile consciousness, mental factor of suffering? I don't know.
Well, Shanti, I laid out this doubt for you just a few minutes ago. I don't want to just answer it right away. The point in laying it out is that so you think about it, you reflect on it, right? And, I don't just spoon feed you the answer right away. Do you understand why it's a doubt? Then that's good. You think about it. Think about the two sides of it. And then, we can talk about the quote unquote answer at another time. Just in general, those of you who might not know me, but the way, we inquire in these texts, we try to develop what they call the three types of wisdom. So first is the wisdom from hearing. And then that means either hearing means listening to Dharma teachings or reading Dharma texts, so forth. Then there's the wisdom of contemplating. And so it's not just enough that, we listen to a lecture and then, okay, see you next week. But we should think about, contemplate the points that are covered in these lectures. You should, read different commentaries and texts and, contemplate the meaning. Within that contemplation is to identify little doubts like this, where you come across a sentence in the text.
Sorry.
Okay. When you read more texts, then these kind of thoughts should also come to mind. So in doing that, that's the wisdom arising from contemplation. Eventually, then you'll have a apparent doubt. And then by contemplating and saying, okay, well, if I say that the arhats have suffering, then that also implies this and this. If I say they don't have suffering, then it contradicts this. But then you come to a point where you say, oh, well, that's what this means. It's actually, when it says they don't have suffering, it means this, or, whatever it is, you come to a kind of conclusion that makes sense of those two apparently contradicting opposing forces. That's the wisdom from contemplation. And then lastly, the wisdom of meditation. Then, you sit down quietly and you just let these, either by contemplating the stanzas that we talked about, or contemplating the outlines that we're going through, you just try to let those kind of realizations sink into your mind and have a more transformative effect. Okay? So that happens slowly over a long period of time. And so when we do these lectures, I'm going to bring up some doubts, but I'm not going to just spoon feed you the answers, because the point isn't in getting the quote unquote right answer, but the point is through your own contemplation to use your discriminating analysis to come with a conclusion that you feel comfortable with. Okay? That's a general point about how to study and listen to the teachings. Okay, and in so doing, we now have two more questions. So Tenzin Namjong.
Tashidale, again, Namchandla. I have a question about the case that you bring about Nagarjuna. And if any karma can be purified, why Nagarjuna, if he knows that he have this karma, that he killed an animal, he didn't purify that karma? It's like unlogical. Or maybe I'm missing something.
Okay.
What do you think about it?
Well, no. So that it is a very problematic story. Okay. So just to then, those of you who haven't heard the story, okay. Anyway, story time. So I think your phone is maybe going off. Maybe you can mute yourself again, and I'll get everyone on the same page about this. Okay. So the story goes, there is a boy, a prince actually, and his father, the king, was a disciple of Nagarjuna, who's a great Indian master. And one day, on the boy's birthday, the mother gave the prince, the queen gave the prince a new outfit, and it's a very, very nice outfit. And the boy said, "Oh, this is so great! I will wait until I'm king before I wear this. It's so nice." And the mother said, "Oh, you're never going to become king, because your father, the current king, is a main disciple of Nagarjuna, and Nagarjuna will help him attain this the city of immortality, whatever." So the prince was not happy about this. He wanted to become king, and so he gets some bad advice. Well, someone tells him, "Oh, but Nagarjuna is a great bodhisattva, and if you ask Nagarjuna to give you his head, he'll do it." Okay. So then the boy then goes to Nagarjuna and says, "Oh, can I have your head?" And first Nagarjuna says, "Okay, go bring a sword and try to cut my head." And then, of course, can't. Then later Nagarjuna says, "Okay, well, now try it with a blade of grass," and is able to do it. Okay. So then I think the problem that Tenzin Namjong is rightly bringing up is, okay, well, one, Nagarjuna knows that he's killed this insect a long time ago. And well, if he knows there's this unpurified karma, why doesn't he just do prostrations to the 35 Buddhas and purify it? Right? Two, this boy then, is he committing the act of murder? And whether we consider Nagarjuna to be a Buddha, in some texts, he's considered to be a Buddha. In other texts, he's considered to be an Arya Bodhisattva. But either way, right, the karmic weight of having killed this Arya Bodhisattva, Nagarjuna, is extremely heavy. And so wouldn't this boy then have to experience, unbearable suffering for a long period of time? Killing a bodhisattva is actually, we'll come to this later, but it's one of the 5 nearing uninterrupted actions. Very heavy negative karma, where, certainly in the very next life, going to be reborn in hells for a very long time. So we see in the other story of Shakyamuni Buddha in one of his past lives, seeing that there's a pirate who's about to kill 500 merchants. The bodhisattva then kills the would-be pirate to save the pirate from committing the negativity of killing those 500 merchants, right? And that's the kind of compassionate thing to do. So now Nagarjuna, in wanting to avoid this child from committing the negative karma of killing an Arya Bodhisattva or higher, then wouldn't he then, not tell the way to kill? Because this child has a non-virtuous motivation to do. So that's why it's problematic. So what do you think? All right. So for the rest of you who are the first time hearing this story, then maybe we also have to let you have a week to think about this. So to Namgyal, thanks for the question. And maybe we'll come to it next week. But I do want it to marinate with the other people. So think about it. Okay, Archana.
Yeah, good evening, Venerable.
Good evening.
I wanted to ask about this kind of violation of the law of karma through this birth in pure realms, isn't it? Because something that is not experiencing the effects of actions that you did not do is happening there, right? So is that's an exception, but there are no exceptions to the law of karma.
Well, yeah, so that's what it's saying. It's saying, so Tsongkhapa, he knows that this is a potential doubt, but he's saying that it's not that, they're experiencing the effects of actions you didn't do, because you have accumulated those causes of, with a mind of bodhicitta, making some kind of, aspiration, making the kind of prostration, praise to Amitabha Buddha, having faith in Amitabha Buddha, and, making a prayer to be reborn in his Pure Land. Okay. So if, the people who didn't even do that,
Lost it.
extra amount of time, making the aspiration that, until, are you able to hear me?
Yeah, we lost
Can you
you
hear
in
me now?
between. Yeah, I can
Oh,
hear
okay.
you.
Okay. So Amitabha Buddha, he collected merit for an extra amount of time and said, okay, until I collect enough merit that ordinary beings, can be reborn in my Pure Land if they, make these aspirations and so forth, may I not achieve enlightenment.
Oh,
Okay. So it's still a kind of, there is some karmic actions being done on our side. Okay. So that's why Tsongkhapa says, right? They haven't accumulated all the causes, but they do need to accumulate a portion. Okay. So they have accumulated the causes to achieve rebirth in Amitabha Buddha Pure Land, but that one just happens to be easier than other Buddha Pure Lands because of the work that Amitabha Buddha sort of did. You understand?
Yeah. So
Okay.
that the causes are those 4 things you mentioned, right? Aspirational prayers and the mind of bodhicitta, and faith in Amitabha.
Yes. And yeah, exactly. Normally they're talked about 3. Bodhicitta, faith in Amitabha, and with faith, then doing some kind of reciting the mantra or reciting. That's why I think we have some people from Singapore. Some people, they just always saying Amitofo, right? Nama, like reciting the Amitabha Buddha's name, right? And making aspirations to be reborn there.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Shanti?
Yeah, Venerable, regarding merit, you said it's a collection of positive karma, except that which you created by meditating on emptiness. That's merit, right? So then is it a collection of karmic imprints? Exactly, in terms of substance?
Well, you see, the nature of all this is also a little bit different in different schools. So for our purposes, maybe it's okay to think like that. Karmic imprints. Yeah, that's probably okay for us to think about.
And it would involve the karmic act that gave rise to the imprint would include an actor, an action, and something to be benefited. Would that also be part of creating that karmic imprint?
Okay, well, all right, we're going to go into this in a lot greater detail in next week. So I don't want to, do it injustice by giving a too brief an answer now. We'll go over that next week. Okay. Because our time is up, actually. So is there anything else right now about the things that we said I might have lost you again. Okay. Any other questions at this point? Can you still hear me? Have I lost connection? Okay.
We can hear you, Venerable. At least I can.
Okay.
Any other questions, everyone?
Okay. Well, if that's the case, then we will pause here and go back to actually, we'll just do this one, okay? So please dedicate in this way. By these merits, may transmigratory beings attain the state of all-seeing, subdue the enemy of faults, and be freed from the ocean of samsara, disturbed by the waves of aging, sickness, and death. So let's also dedicate all the merit that we've accumulated in our time here today for the benefit of all sentient beings, as well as the long lives of the spiritual friends, and in particular, all the beings who have recently died. May they be born in a pure land very easily, even if they've only accumulated a very small amount of the causes to do so. At the very least, may they attain a perfect human rebirth and attain enlightenment in their very next lifetime. And then all the various sufferings in the world, the sufferings due to natural disasters, sickness, war, famine, and so forth, may they instantly be pacified. And may all sentient beings, by achieving the state of bodhicitta, quickly attain the state of enlightenment. Okay, so thank you very much. We'll see you again next week. I appreciate all of your participation. If you do have either Lamrim Chenma or another Lamrim text, it'd be good to read that section. And next week we'll be going into the very detailed look at the 10 non-virtues. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Venerable.
Namaste.